there everyone, it's Nina Marie Trapani for Simon Says Stamp, and thanks for joining me today for the reveal of our Dare to be Artsy STAMPtember 2024 collaboration set. This set is called Sunshine, and it is so sweet. It is perfect for all of your autumn stamping and creative projects. I'm going to be using the set today to create an autumn-inspired card. It's a card that is great for sending all season long as a thank you. And what's really nice about this stamp set is that the sentiments contained within the set are great for all season. This is not a set that you would think of using for just Thanksgiving. I love the fact that it is so universal for the season that we are in currently. So as with all of our STAMPtember collaboration sets, this is available only at simonsaysstamp.com for a limited time only. It is a STAMPtember collaboration exclusive. You can purchase the stamps on their own, or you can purchase the stamps with the coordinating die. So you have both options available to you. Let's take a quick look at the stamp set before we work on the card. So here's the stamp set. It's a 4x6 set and features 3 great large images and then some supporting sentiments. The coordinating dies cut out all the main images as well as the thanks greeting die. I'm going to start first by picking out 2 of the images from the stamp set, which are the sunflowers and then the little grouping of pumpkins and corn. And I'm going to stamp these onto some Hammermill white cardstock with our Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And the reason I'm choosing these 2 products, the Hammermill cardstock and the ink, is because I'm going to be working with Copic markers to color. But if you like other mediums such as distressed watercolor pencils, watercolors, pencils, or anything else you prefer, feel free to substitute that coloring medium. If you are interested in the Copic markers that I did use today, you can find all of the details listed down in the video description below. For one of the pumpkins, I stuck with the traditional orange, but then I actually colored the smaller pumpkin in a light off-white color. So I used 2 light E markers for that. Then for the corn, I wanted to be able to create that tri-colored corn effect. So I'm going to dot little colors of oranges and yellows across the corn just to give it that variety of color, which I think is really fun. And then I'll color the dried silks as well with some darker oranges and some yellows. For the greens, I used YG markers. I used YG 11, 13, and 17, and I used those same greens not only on the sunflowers, but also on the pumpkin leaves. That way the image is going to be cohesive across my entire project. I'm putting these 2 pieces together on the same card, so I do want to make sure that the colors work well together. So the same colors that I used for the corn are also colors that I used for the sunflowers. These are Y markers in 11, 15, and 17. Now for the centers of the flowers and also the stems of the pumpkins, I chose some E40 markers in the darker end of the spectrum. So it was 42, 44, and 47. Same thing with the centers of the sunflowers, they have the same browns. Wrapping things up, the little stalks of wheat at the bottom of the sunflowers, I colored with some darker oranges, and then I finished off that little grouping of corn with a red bow. I'm using the coordinating dies to cut out the images. I just love not having to fussy cut my images, so having the coordinating dies to me is so helpful. So I'm holding them down with very, very low tack tape from Simon Says Stamp to make sure that these don't shift as I run them through my die cut machine. Once they're die cut, I'm planning to group them together on my card generally like this, but I need to work on my background. For the background, I've chosen this Autumn Gourds embossing folder from our Simon Says Stamp collection. This is one of our newer embossing folders, perfect for the season. I'm going to emboss some of our white Simon Says Stamp cardstock to get that really nice texture on my paper. These 3D embossing folders are amazing with the detail that they provide. Check that out. So I'm going to use 4 colors to ink blend. Now you would look at these colors and not necessarily choose them for fall, right? Well, I thought this would be fun to tie in a little bit of pink. So Cheeky is kind of an unexpected color, but it's on the pink scale, and I really love how the pink is tied into autumn colors. It's a little trendy right now. Blues and pinks are really hot to use for colors during the fall season, so I thought I would tie in the pink here. So I've put the orange and yellow colors down along the bottom right, and then the pink, I'm going to transition a little bit of orange into it, and then I'll bring in the green, which is Cabbage. Now all of the ink colors and all of the products that I'm using today, including the STAMPtember exclusive, are all linked below in the video description. So if you're curious about any of the products I'm using, that's where you can find those details. Once my ink blending was complete, now we're going to splatter it with a little bit of white ink. This is some Dina Wakley white spray, and it's great because it doesn't react with any of your ink colors that you have underneath. Some white sprays can have a tendency to react with water-based mediums that are underneath it, but this one does not, and I love it. So I did splatter this across my entire background. And then once that was dry, I started working on assembling my card. So my gourd panel is going to get adhered onto some matte gold cardstock from our Simon Says Stamp collection. I'm using Terrific tape to attach this down, and I'm going to attach this so that there's only a very thin border showing around the edges of this panel. Then I'll cut this down in my trimmer to even up the other two sides, and this will get layered onto my card base, which I'm making from some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. This is a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base, and I used my Simon Says Stamp scoring board and a Teflon bone folder to do my scoring. So this card panel I will pop up with some foam tape in the center of my card. So I'm going to pull out my Simon Says Stamp foam tape, and using my scissors I will trim this down, and I just put a couple of strips on the back side. This panel is pretty sturdy, so I don't need too much to give it the dimension it needs. So once I go ahead and remove the release paper, then I'll just carefully line this up into the center of my card. Now before I work on assembling my images on top, I do want to tie a bit of ribbon around this. I love this sheer ribbon from Studio Light. It's got a nice warm autumn feel. And I'm going to tie this around my card front, just so that way it will wrap around the backside and then it will not impede the card from opening. It's only tied around the front, but that gives me this really nice bow that wraps around the entire card, and I'll just fiddle with it until I'm happy with the size and the placement. This just adds a really nice elegant touch to the card. Now to attach my sunflowers and pumpkins, I'm going to use two different sizes of foam squares. These are Simon Says Stamp thin and regular foam squares. The thin ones you can see are about half the dimension as the regular, which is great because what it allows you to do is get some variation in your depth for your scene. So here I'm going to use the thin foam squares on the sunflowers because the sunflowers are actually going to be behind the pumpkins. So I'm going to layer that onto my card first with those thin foam squares, put this right along the side of the card. Then I'm going to bring in the 3D foam squares, the thicker ones, and these I will attach to my pumpkin piece so that way I can adhere that in front of the sunflowers. So I know this doesn't seem like a lot, but it really does make a big difference when you have the different levels of dimension on your card project. It makes the scene feel more realistic. I trimmed down my ribbon just a little bit so that way I could clean up the edges, and I do like that the tails are a little bit longer on this card. For my sentiment, I'm going to stamp onto some dark chocolate cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm inking up my stamp with embossing ink. I did prep the surface prior to stamping, so that way when I put my embossing powder on top, it will only stick to the ink areas, not to any of the other areas of the cardstock. Once I tap off the excess, then I can go ahead and heat set this with my heat tool, and we're ready to die cut. And like I said, there is a coordinating die for this greeting, so I'll use that to cut this out and hold it down with my tape while I run it through my machine. To adhere my sentiment to the card though, I am going to use liquid glue. Again, thinking about depth, the sentiment is now a little bit further behind the sunflowers, so that's enhancing that depth that we're creating here on this scene. My last finishing touch were to add some dazzling gems to the card using our Pastel Tones collection. This is a new collection and available only at SimonSaysStamp.com. It's such a beautiful collection that matches so nicely with the colors of my card. So I used the green, orange, and yellow ones from that mix. There are also pink and blue. Such a beautiful color combination that went so nice with this card. I love that it's trendy and has a little bit more of an unexpected look for the fall season. Not the dark, rich colors that you would expect, but something a little bit more softer. And of course, this card features the brand new Sunshine Stamps and Coordinating Dies from Dare to be Artsy, part of our Simon Says STAMPtember celebration and only available for a limited time only. So if you love this set, I encourage you to grab it while you can. You can find the links down in the video description as well as over on our blog. Thanks so much for tuning in today, friends. I hope you were inspired and enjoyed watching this card come together. I can't wait to come back and share more with you very soon. So until then, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.